Okay, well, talk to me about what the legislator did, because they essentially grabbed a pool of money or allotted a certain amount of money and said, okay, instead of our schools going out onto the open market, they can just bond against the state. Is that accurate?
Close enough. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What it basically says is, like, of course, as we know, there's a constitutional requirement, Idaho State Constitution, for proper funding of public education. Right. And, there's a lot behind that, but I'll cut immediately to the chase. So the legislature sort of realized, okay, it's fairly difficult for these local districts to be able to do the type of work that they need to do, particularly when you have a 66, 2/3 requirement for any bonded indebtedness, which is typically what you need to do. You want to buy a house, you have to get a mortgage. The analog is you need to build a school, you have to get a bond. And so they said, okay, we're going to do a higher degree of support, and they put some restrictions on it and some things that you have to do. Thankfully, West Data got ahead of that, so we're way ahead of the curve in terms of the requirements to be able to get the funding. But the net effect of it is that there's a significant amount of funding that's going to be put forward that is not on the operational side. It's on the asset side, right? It's on the building maintenance. It's on the new construction, building of new schools, and so that has given us a lot more flexibility to be able to address some of these concerns that we've had, because their schools are starting to show the wear and tear, right? And it's just a function of the exceptional growth that we've had. So anyway, so those are really helping us to adjust our finances and to make sure that we continue to be the excellent stewards of the public funds that I think we've done a fantastic job on. In fact, I brought my actual property tax. And you'll notice here, and everybody can check this out on their own property tax, but it's sort of like, maybe.
Here, let me take a picture.
Eventually,
I'll black out your address.
Black out my address, black out the numbers. But the key important point is that it shows sort of year over year property tax changes, and and for the other areas, mosquito abatement, flood control, all the various places that we do taxes, and up 6%, up 5%, up 3%. Okay, property tax change for school district number 2, which is the West Data School District. Negative 50%.
Explain that to me. Explain that.
So it means both the function in terms of how we're managing our financial stewardship at the West Data School District, in addition to the legislature reorienting themselves towards allowing for greater degree of funding at the state level, means that we can pass that along to our taxpayers and make sure they're getting extra value for their money. And I mentioned this last time, and if you go back 20 years, the actual per 100,000 property tax rate for the West Data School District was in excess of $700, right? And now it's less than 60 per 100,000. Right. And so you have situations where people that have had their property values increase by 2x, even 3x over the past 5 years, and yet they're paying less net property tax. And the only reason that I'm bringing that up is to just say that we're really, really cognizant and really trying to make sure that we spend this money wisely and we get the best results that we can for the money. But you're always going to have somebody that's going to come out and say, oh, they're raising their taxes by, You're never going to have anyone says, oh man, they lowered my taxes by 50%. They're never going to say that. And so, I'm not expecting them to, but I think it's my job as a trustee to sort of remind everybody that, look, we're working really hard on this to make sure that we're delivering the right value from the education standpoint.
Right.
And again, if you were just cutting costs and you were having downgraded experience, that's one thing. But we just got our ISAT scores back. As you know, last year we were number 1 in reading, number 1 in math. We have improved our scores from those scores. One of them is the highest it's ever been. The other is the second highest it's ever been in our history.
Wait, back up. What the ELA and the math, one of those is the highest in the now is actually, even though we were number 1 in the state of Idaho, you have improved on that number, and now it's us against us, which is literally, that's the highest we've ever produced in the district.
So we don't know what the relative scores are, right? So we don't know where we rank in terms of the other districts. I assume that we'll remain on top. If we didn't, then somebody else did exceptional. And
but I mean, forget the other districts. The point is, like, we were number 1 last year, and we just beat our wow, man.
Yep. And I mean, again, it's not only that, we improved our CTE diplomas by almost half, right? 40% increase in the number of career and technical education certifications that were conferred, right? So, again, it's that college and career ready. Really, we focus on academics, really focusing on those important skills. And still delivering it at a place where we can cut property taxes by 50% and can improve our overall performance, both in reading, both in math, in CTE. I mean, it's really, it's funny because when we had the last conversation, a sort of funny thing that I ended it on was, we're delivering all of these things. And at a certain point, we're hoping that the community, in particular people that tend to view public education in a negative sense, say, okay, I want to give you some credit for that. You know,
right. Like, good job, Dave.
You guys are doing actually a good thing. Yeah. And it's really, really interesting because there's and you can understand why, right? Particularly when you look at, you know, other states and the way that they're handling public education. It's really easy to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I think that that's a mistake, right? Particularly if you're looking from a perspective of fundamentally conservative public education, you have to reward things that are doing right, right? Because if you look at the people that are doing things wrong, and then you look at the people that are doing things right, and you lump them into the same bottom, and treat them equally. Like, I'm not going to give you any support. We're not going to give you any public funding support. I'm just going to throw you out because, because you're all right. Bad apples. And that takes a little bit of effort. You have to think about it. You have to say, are they really doing this the right way? Are we really seeing the support? And then you have to make a distinction. Okay, well, I'm not necessarily going to support schools in California, but I am going to support school districts here in Idaho. And in particular, I'm going to support the West Ada School District because I really think they're doing things right.
Well, I support the West Ada School District in particular because I live in the district. So, there's that.
But this is an important point. I don't think that has to be like, so, people like say, oh, hey, public education, how is your public school doing? My public school is doing great. Right.
Right.
And so that's a very natural provincial thing. They hate Congress. They love their congressperson. Right. So I think that it requires a little bit more work to really be truly critical and say, okay, where are the areas that you can improve? And I know there are areas we can improve. Transportation is one of those areas that I know that we can improve on. But that fundamental thing to be critical, but to be able to acknowledge and be able to take the win.
Right.
And be able to say, yeah, actually, you guys are doing a really, really good job. I'm going to choose to support you, and I'm going to choose to be public in supporting you, even though most of the time I'm against public education for a variety of reasons.